Hi all, it's Vanessa Love. Yeah, I have some cold. It's great. I have to take another COVID test. Yay! All right, so I kind of want to take a couple of videos and talk about some of the things that do keep millennials back. And I know millennials talk about this all the time, but it's like one of those things where I'm like, if you don't know, then you don't know. And like, it's very frustrating when you don't know and you have to be like, oh, 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 okay. So, let me talk to you about buying a house. So, like, my parents have, particularly my dad, has bought up so much property. He bought property, I don't, like, wherever he went, I swear to God, he just bought property. Like, my parents went to Hawaii for their honeymoon because they were living in California at the time, and, like, he just bought land in Hawaii on their honeymoon. And then, like, I think sometime before that, he had a different property in California somewhere, in like one of the like, just yeah. And he still has property, and he tried to buy property in Mexico. I swear he buys property wherever he is. I do not know where he comes up with this money because according to him, he's either absolutely broke or a millionaire, and I don't know which one it is. Cause life, fun times. So he had a property and he's had a couple of properties, and city, like the city that those properties were in, like one was in one city, one was in another city. He was like using one of the properties, and like the city bought it from him to like expand the railroad or something like that. No, actually, they developed that land to have like those like cookie cutter houses on, right next to the railroad tracks. Smart on them. That sounds terrible. Especially like with the, I think it was one of the routes that was not passenger. I think it was one of the routes that had like the 18 train cars on it, like just hauling stuff by. Oh man, yeah, the cargo, the cargo trains, yeah, so fun. Um, so there was that property. There was another property that he owned in a different city that the city bought up, I think, to like, expand the highway. So like he's just lucked out every time. He's just bought property and just sat on it sometimes, and then it just works. The one with the development on it, he was using that property, and he was so mad he had to move out. It was a whole thing. I don't know. So like he just buys property. He makes it look so easy. He's just like, I have the money for it. I buy property. Like, okay. For me to buy a property is a whole other thing, because for a long time I was I was not taken seriously to buy anything because I had student loans, and I had student loans because of a lot of different reasons, but because I needed my college education and to, practice what I do now. And I was not getting any help. So that led to me having that, and then preventing me from getting a house, or an apartment or anything like that. And then I found out, like, through, just through talking with different people, like what my limits were possibly going to be. I could afford a condo. That was so fun to find that out. And then also, I believe, and you can always correct me if I am incorrect on this, but like banks won't give loans if they're like below 100,000 or something like that. So if you bought property for 90,000, or if you found a property that you really liked for 90,000, you're not getting a loan for that. Like not in Connecticut anyway. Maybe another state, perfectly fine, but like you're not getting a loan for that. And then like there's like restrictions on what you can do with a property. Like you can't just, but like in Connecticut anyway, you can't just put an RV on it. They don't allow you to, like, really to do that. Like they just, like, it's a very weird thing. Like there's a lot of like property stuff that it's just like, oh okay. I think also like Connecticut outlawed like tiny houses. So like that's particularly fun. Thanks, Connecticut. If that's true, please tell me if I'm not, if that's not true. So like Yeah, it's a whole thing where like, like you try and look these things up, and you like, try and like do all the things that you can do, and you get, financial advice from people who have money, and they can just be like, oh, well, yeah, of course, do that. And then you try to go and do it, things like, oh, save up 20% instead of having 3% so that your overall like payment will be lower. Well, I can't do that. I like that's gonna take like 10 years, for me to save up that money. And then by that time I have to save up another, 5 years worth of stuff because it's gonna be higher at that point to buy a house. So like fine, I'll just do the 3%. And then like people will be like, oh, I could just go to auction. Okay, so in Connecticut, if you want to go to auction, you usually have to have the cash. So if you already had $100,000 in hand, you'd probably be in a good position anyway. You'd probably want to buy a house. Like, it's so ridiculous how like it's so interesting, this lie of like, oh, well, you could just buy a house, you could just buy a property, you could just buy this stuff, and then it's just not possible. And it's like all of these things where it's like, oh, okay, oh, can you find like an RV hookup for inexpensive in Connecticut? Yeah. But like, is it anywhere really where you kind of want to be? Like, is there one in Stanford or like anywhere in Fairfield County that's like, close, to maybe a train station or something? I really don't. We don't want the trailer parks in our backyard. Yeah. So it just like everything is almost like meant to be so frustrating. And it's like, oh, so that's why people aren't doing this. Yeah, that's why people aren't doing this, because like you just like you are not, it's almost like you're not meant to, like you are just out of it, and I just saw like a TikTok the other day that was like, oh, like boomers checking their accounts, and it's like, almost $100,000, and like millennials checking their account and it's about $20, and then like Gen Z checking their account and it's like negative 100,000, and it's like, well, yeah, that's about right. That's about where we all are, and it's so ridiculous, and like it's just so frustrating too, because then it's like, okay, so can we do this? Can we do that? Can we have this? Can we have that? No. Oh. So this is actually like out of our like hands. Like, yeah, it's out of your hands. So, well, you should have thought of that before you did all of the things that we told you to do. You should have had the critical thinking skills enough to determine whether or not what we were saying was actually true for you, and whether or not, we made it kind of look easy. Like, yeah, we kind of made it look easy. Easy enough that I thought that I could do it, and property just seemed like it was just right there, and then it's like, there might be like a deal where like you can get, a commercial property for $2. Okay, you're going to be spending like $50,000 to kind of like ramp it up enough, and hopefully you can get the city to zone it for mixed use so that you can actually live there. If not, well, also commercial electricity is more expensive than regular just commercial or residential electricity, so you also have to put that in there as well. One of my clients was kind of planning on something like that, and I said, okay, so do you have enough to afford some of like the drywall that it's going to take to make a couple of rooms in a place like that, aside from, okay, yeah, you can just, pay the $2 or whatever, but like you are going to have to probably like have so many inspections and put that up to code that the inspections are going to be expensive in the first place. Then you have to bring it up to code, and that is why people don't buy these properties, because like if they were viable, if they were good enough, then some investor would come in and do all the things that are necessary to update that to make it a commercial property, or they'll have enough money and time to pursue all of the legal and like, yeah, legal requirements that it would to make it a mixed use property. So like, you aren't going to figure that out on your own while you're working your part-time job, or while you're trying to go to school, or while you're trying to do all of these other things, and while you are trying to live a life. um, like, it seems like you might be able to squat in some of those places, but you could also lose all of your property that way. So what do you want to do? Fun times figuring things out. Yay, glad, wonderful, woohoo. So this is why people get very frustrated with the way that things are, because it's just not accessible. Anyway, I hope that was helpful for you, and I will talk with you soon. Bye.